All right, welcome to our deep dive into using social media to boost your cottage food business.
I know you're really interested in harnessing the power of the internet, and you're in the right place because this industry is seriously booming. It's like exceeding $5 billion annually. That's
Yeah.
a lot of cakes and cookies.
Yeah, it really is.
We're going to take that YouTube video that you sent us about using social media to market your homemade food business. And we're really going to break down its key insights. So get ready to learn how to use those platforms effectively, legally, and deliciously.
And what's really interesting here is this isn't just about, online trends. It intersects with this bigger cultural shift. Consumers are really craving that personal touch, that authenticity. They want to know the story behind their food. And social media, it really gives cottage food businesses that platform to share their story. Yeah, I love that. It's not just about like snapping a picture of a cupcake. It's about, like you were saying, sharing the passion and the process behind it.
Mm.
But with so many platforms out there, it can be a little overwhelming to know where to start.
Yeah.
You've got Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, Nextdoor.
Right. There's a lot.
So how do we choose?
Well, it all comes down to understanding who your ideal customer is. So instead of trying to be everywhere at once, you really want to focus on maybe one or two platforms where your target audience is already spending their time.
That makes total sense. You wouldn't want to be like shouting into the void on a platform where no one's listening.
Yeah.
So, okay, we've chosen our platforms. What's next?
Time to build that online storefront. Think of it as your digital bakery window. You really want to make a great first impression.
Okay.
So make sure your branding is consistent across your chosen platforms. That means using the same logo, color scheme, fonts, and that overall aesthetic.
Gotcha. Okay, so we need a cohesive look and feel. What about the content of the profile itself? What should we include?
Well, your profile picture, that's prime real estate. Use either your logo or a really mouth-watering shot of your best-selling product. And then you want to craft a concise bio that really tells people exactly what you're offering. So what are you selling? Where are you located? And don't forget a clear call to action. How can people place an order? And of course, transparency is key. Yeah. Clearly state that you are a cottage food business. This is going to help manage expectations and also ensures you're complying with all regulations.
Speaking of compliance,
Yeah.
that seems to be a big theme in this video. So
Yeah.
why is it so crucial, especially when it comes to social media?
Well, because transparency is not just good practice, it's often the law. And while social media can help you reach a wider audience, it's essential to remember that cottage food laws, they often have restrictions on where and how you can sell.
Right.
So be upfront about these limitations in your bio and your posts. For example, stating your products are only available for local pickup.
Yeah.
So it not only keeps you on the right side of the law, but also builds trust with your customers.
So compliance isn't just a box to tick. It's an integral part of building a sustainable and ethical business.
Absolutely. It shows that you're taking your business seriously and that you're, committed to operating within the law. Now, once you've laid that foundation, it's time to get creative and start crafting your content.
Okay, let's talk about the fun part. Making those digital taste buds tingle. How do we make our content stand out in a sea of food photos?
It's all about creating a visual story that really captures the essence of your brand. So think about what makes your cottage food business unique.
Okay.
Are you using local organic ingredients? Do you specialize in, vegan or gluten-free options? Do you have a signature decorating style that really sets you apart?
So we need to highlight those unique selling points, the things that make us special. So what are some practical ways to showcase that in our content?
Think beyond just posting, static photos of your products. Let's say you bake sourdough bread. Instead of just a photo of the finished loaf, maybe show a time-lapse video of the dough rising or share a close-up shot of the beautiful scoring pattern, before it goes in the oven.
I can practically smell that bread baking now. It's
Yeah.
all about bringing your audience into your kitchen, right?
Exactly. Think of each post as a chapter in the story of your business. Give people a glimpse behind the scenes. Share your process, your inspiration, your passion. Let them see the love and care that goes into each creation.
So it's about making that personal connection, inviting people into our world. Now, what about those mouth-watering photos the video mentioned? Any tips for making our food look its best?
Lighting is key. Natural light is your best friend. Find a spot near a window and let that soft diffused light work its magic. And don't be afraid to get up close and personal with your camera. Capture the textures, the colors, the little details that make your food so special.
This is making me hungry. But before I run off to bake something, What about using props in our photos?
Props can definitely, enhance your photos and add to the story you're telling. So if you're going for a rustic, homemade vibe, incorporate things like vintage baking sheets, wooden spoons, and linen napkins. But if you're all about, modern elegance, you might opt for sleek serving platters and minimalist backdrops.
So choose props that are aligned with your brand aesthetic. It's like setting the stage for your food. Okay, now I'm curious about incorporating customer testimonials. How do we leverage those happy customers to boost our social media presence?
Well, when potential customers see others raving about your products, it builds trust and credibility. So encourage happy customers to leave reviews on your Facebook page or tag you in their Instagram photos. You can even repost those glowing testimonials to your own feed.
So it's like having a virtual word-of-mouth marketing team. But what if we have a customer who isn't so happy? How do we handle negative feedback online?
That's a great question, and it's something all businesses need to be prepared for. We'll dive into the art of managing online communities, both the good and the challenging, in the next part of our deep dive, so stay tuned.
Okay, welcome back. In the last part, we talked all about, laying the groundwork for your social media presence, picking the right platforms, creating an amazing profile, and crafting content that, tells your brand story. Now it's time to get to the heart of it all, building an engaged online community.
Exactly. Because having that beautiful feed, those mouth-watering photos, it's a great start, but it doesn't really mean much if it's not bringing in customers for your awesome creations.
So true. How do we turn those likes and comments into actual orders?
Engagement, that's the magic word. It's about connecting with your followers, making them feel like they're part of something special. Think about it. Would you rather buy a cake from some faceless brand, that just posts product photos? Or from a baker who takes the time to answer your questions, respond to your comments, and shares their baking journey with you?
I go with the baker every time, the one who makes me feel like I'm part of their world. But I have to admit, the thought of engaging with hundreds or thousands of people online, it can be a little intimidating.
I get it. It can seem like a lot. But honestly, it doesn't have to be. Even just taking a few minutes every day to, check your notifications, reply to comments, maybe start a conversation, it can make a huge difference. It's about quality over quantity. Even a handful of genuine interactions can really go a long way in building those relationships.
Okay, that makes me feel a lot better. But there are times when I'm up to my elbows in flour, trying to, get a big order out the door. How can I stay engaged without getting totally sucked into that social media vortex?
That's where planning and scheduling come in. A lot of these social media platforms, they have tools that let you create posts in advance and schedule them to go out at specific times. So you could spend like an hour or two, one day a week, like batch creating content, schedule it to go out, throughout the week, and then you can just focus on your baking.
It's like having a virtual assistant for your social media.
Yeah.
I love it. It definitely takes the pressure off knowing that my social media is taken care of even when I'm busy. Okay, so we're responding to comments, we're scheduling posts. What are some other ways that we can actively engage with our audience?
Think about sparking conversations. Instead of just posting, a photo of your latest batch of cookies, ask a question in the caption like, what's your favorite cookie to bake?
Mm-hmm.
Or run a poll. Ask your followers to choose between, two new cake flavors you're thinking about. This not only encourages interaction, but it gives you valuable insights into what your customers actually want.
Yeah, it's like we're inviting them to be a part of the process,
Yeah,
and makes them feel valued, like their opinions matter.
exactly. And here's a pro tip. Don't forget about user-generated content. If a customer posts a photo of themselves, enjoying your cake, reshare it to your feed or your story. It's authentic, it shows social proof, and it makes your customers feel like stars.
It's like a personal endorsement from a friend, way more powerful than any ad. Okay, so we're creating engaging content, we're responding to comments, we're asking questions, running polls, but how do we know if it's actually working? How do we measure success beyond just looking at the number of likes we're getting?
Well, data. You need to keep an eye on those metrics, but not just any metrics, the ones that actually matter for your business. Follower count's great and all, but are those followers the right kind of people? Are they interested in what you're selling? And are they local? Because remember, 1,000 followers across the globe doesn't really help if you can only sell locally because of those cottage food laws.
Right, right. So what are some other metrics that tell us we're on the right track?
Engagement rate's a big one. It tells you what percentage of people who see your content are actually interacting with it. Liking, commenting, sharing, clicking links, a high engagement rate. It means your content's resonating and it's actually prompting people to do something.
So it's not just about like vanity metrics, it's about making sure those likes are turning into real engagement and sales.
Exactly. And honestly, sometimes the best data comes directly from your customers. Don't be afraid to just ask them, how did you find me? Was it through social media? Which platform? And that kind of information can really help you fine-tune your strategy and focus your efforts on what's actually working.
That's like having a direct line to your target audience. So what happens if we've been, tracking everything and we realize that things aren't quite where we want them to be? Maybe engagement's low or we're not seeing much traffic to our website.
Well, the cool thing about social media is that it's always changing. So you have to be willing to experiment and adjust. If something's not working, don't be afraid to try something new. Switch up your content formats, experiment with different posting times, see what your competitors are doing, and don't be afraid to just ask your audience, what do you want to see more of?
So it's a constant learning process.
It is, and that's, part of what makes it so exciting. Now, before we get too carried away with all this experimenting, let's go back to compliance for a minute.
Right, because staying on the right side of the law, especially as our online presence grows, it's crucial.
Absolutely. As you're building your community and engaging with your audience, remember, transparency is key. Always double check that your posts and your interactions are actually complying with your state's cottage food regulations. That means, being upfront about ingredients, allergen information, and any limitations you might have on, sales or delivery areas.
It's not just about avoiding problems, it's about building a business based on trust and integrity.
Exactly. And that trust, that's what turns followers into loyal customers, the ones who'll, rave about your products and tell all their friends about you. Building a community takes time and effort, but it is so rewarding to see it all come together. It's like creating this awesome, virtual neighborhood bakery online where everyone feels welcome and excited to be there. Ready for part 3, where we'll tie it all together with some key takeaways? Stay with us.
All right, welcome back to the final part of our deep dive on social media for cottage food businesses. We've talked about a lot, from choosing the right platforms and making an awesome profile to crafting engaging content and building, a thriving online community. I feel like I have a PhD in social media marketing for bakers now.
Well, you've definitely been a star student.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground. So
Yeah.
let's take a step back and kind of distill everything down to some key takeaway.
Perfect. Yeah, where do we even begin? There's so much to remember.
Okay, so let's start with the foundation. Why are we even doing all this social media stuff, right? It's not just about posting pictures and hoping for the best. It's about harnessing the power of these platforms to actually connect with customers in a meaningful way. Building those relationships, sharing your brand story, right? Like bringing that warm, fuzzy feeling of a neighborhood bakery online.
Exactly. And that leads to our next takeaway, which is patience. Building a successful presence online, it takes time. It takes consistency. It's not about overnight viral fame, It's about showing up authentically day after day and nurturing those connections.
It's like tending a garden, right? You plant those seeds, you water them, and you watch them grow.
Perfect analogy. Now remember all those different social media platforms we talked about. You don't have to be on all of them. Choose one or two. Ones that you really like and where your customers are hanging out. It's better to have a strong presence on just a few platforms than try to be everywhere and spread yourself too thin.
Okay, so quality over quantity, always a good rule of thumb. And once we've, picked our platforms, we got to make those profiles shine. Make sure our branding is consistent, our bio is clear and engaging.
Yeah.
And our photos, well, they got to make people drool.
Absolutely. It's like setting up a beautiful storefront, but online. You want people to see it and want to come in.
So our shop is all set up, looking amazing. Now we got to fill it with those irresistible treats. What kind of content should we be sharing?
Think of your content as a menu. Okay? You have those main courses, those mouth-watering photos of your baked goods, but you got to spice things up, right? Add those appetizers and sides and desserts. Share behind-the-scenes stuff, highlight those awesome customer reviews, maybe even give some baking tips or fun food facts. Just create a balanced and engaging experience.
Variety is the spice of life and the spice of social media, right? But even with the best content, it won't matter if no one sees it. How do we make sure we're reaching the right people?
Community engagement, that's key. Respond to comments, answer those questions, join the conversation, make people feel heard and valued. It's not just about you talking at them. It's about fostering a real connection.
Yeah, like creating a space where everyone feels welcome to talk about baking, ask questions, and just connect.
Exactly. And don't forget about those customer reviews. Those are so valuable. Encourage people to share their experiences, spread the word. That's the best kind of marketing you can get.
It's authentic, right? It comes straight from the heart. Now, speaking of marketing, how do we know if all this is actually working? I know it's easy to get caught up in those likes and followers,
Yeah.
but what are the metrics that actually matter?
Okay, so track that follower growth, but make sure those new followers are the right people, the ones interested in your stuff and who live close enough to actually buy from you. And engagement rate is another big one. Are people liking, commenting, sharing, clicking your links? That's a good sign that your content is actually doing something.
So it's not just about vanity, it's about making sure those likes turn into real engagement and sales.
Exactly. And honestly, sometimes the best feedback, it comes straight from your customers. Don't be afraid to ask them, how did you find me? Was it through social media? Which platform? You can learn a lot from that.
Yeah, it's so valuable. Social media is always changing, though.
It is.
So we got to be ready to experiment, to adapt, to try new things.
Absolutely. And if something's not working, change it up.
It's a journey. And speaking of journeys, we can't end this deep dive without going back to compliance. It's so important to stay informed about those cottage food laws and make sure that everything we do online follows the rules.
Yes, 1,000%. Transparency is key. Be upfront about your ingredients, allergens, any limitations you might have. It protects you and it builds trust with your customers.
It's about doing business the right way. So after all of this, what's the one big thing we want our listeners to take away?
Social media, it's all about connection. Connecting with people who share your passion for creating amazing food. It's about sharing your story, building those relationships, fostering that sense of community.
Focus on those connections, provide value, stay true to yourself and your unique baking style. That's the recipe for success.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So there you have it, our deep dive into using social media to boost your cottage food business. I know it was a lot, but I hope you found it helpful and maybe even inspiring. Now, get out there, have some fun, be creative, and don't be afraid to experiment.
Yeah, and enjoy the journey.
Happy baking, everyone,
Yeah.
and happy posting.
Yeah.